Analyst Brian Sobel with us here in studio. Brian, when Donald Trump is booked, officially charged in court, he's not in control of that moment. I don't know how many times in his life he hasn't been in control of the moment. How does that affect him personally? How does that affect him politically as well?
Well, it's going to be really interesting to watch because he's going to go through a process. And it's a legal process that he can't control, as you mentioned. But I think he is going to try to make a moment out of it. You know, you hear about the so-called perp walk and all that sort of thing. They can secrete him into the building. That's not a problem. I think he opts to.
He wants the cameras.
He wants the cameras.
The lights.
Yes, and he wants it all, and I think he's going to make a big show out of it, to be honest with you.
Well, we don't even know what the charge is yet,
No.
right? The indictment is sealed, but when it does get unsealed or we do see what this charge is, do you think it will galvanize his base, or do you think there's some cracks in the foundation there?
Well, the key is what's in the indictment. If there are these 30 charges, and it comes down to a he said, Michael Cohen versus somebody else, and there isn't a lot of evidence, yeah, it's going to galvanize a lot of people who would have rather seen this maybe occur because of the Washington situation, you know, the insurrection at the Capitol, or because of his commentary around and trying to get into the Georgia election. Those are things that I think people would have thought he would have been indicted for, not for this necessarily.
You know, he's campaigning right now, and today he called the indictment political persecution. Says it will damage Democrats next year, the election year. Does this decision by the DA in Manhattan hurt Democrats next year or not?
Well, it's possible. If this comes out to be a very political thing because the evidence just is very weak, then I think Democrats do get hurt, which is why I think the White House is rightly being very quiet about it. And other Democrats are saying, let's wait and see the evidence and we'll decide. That's the right answer, and it should be the right answer for Republicans as well. You know, you had a lot of Republicans jump in on this thing prematurely. They don't know what's in those indictment and in those charges. So I think everybody ought to just wait for next week, where we'll learn more.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because the chairwoman for the Republican National Committee said that this was an abuse of power to have this indictment come down, even though we don't know what is in the indictment. But curious to know whether or not you anticipate any other Republicans looking at this and saying, you know what, maybe we take a step back, or maybe this is our time to distance ourselves from Donald Trump.
I think after we know more about what's in the indictment, I think if they have the evidence, they have the goods on this, on the former president, I think you're going to have to see Republicans back off, and you're going to see presidential aspirants, particularly, having to take a different view of it.
What about the impact on the nation, you know, as a whole?
That's the
all of us, not just lawmakers, but all of us sitting at home watching this unfold.
That's the sad part of this. It's, once again, democracy is being litigated, and whether we have the kind of country that can rise above it. And we're hearing the right things about nobody is above the law. And if campaign funds were funneled to this woman, Stormy Daniels, then it is very similar to other cases where money has been funneled from campaigns. And members of Congress have been rung up for that and sent to prison for that. So it's not unprecedented. It's unprecedented to have a president be indicted for on a criminal charge.
Well, on that note, before we leave, would just love to ask you your reaction, because we have him now accused of inciting a riot, impeached twice. Now he has this charge against him. This has never happened before. We've never gone through something like this. History in the making, really, as we speak about it. What is your reaction to what happened today?
It was just a big, big day in American history, because it's unprecedented. So was January 6th. We're seeing things connected with this individual that we haven't seen before. And I'm sure his base says, well, that's because the other side has been unfair. You've got to take everything into account and wonder why this is going on.
Does it go to trial or no?
It's so hard to say. We don't know.
Yeah. All right. Brian, appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming in.